The New York Post writes, an Indiana father whose infant child was found nearly eaten alive by rats and disfigured in a pool of blood will spend more than a decade behind bars after a judge slapped him with the maximum sentence. The 6-month-old baby was discovered in his bassinet covered in blood with more than 50 rat bites to his body, face, and extremities, with his tiny fingers gnawed down to the bone. When Evansville police responded to the House of Horrors on September 13th, 2023, according to the Brandenburg County Prosecutor's Office. Prosecutors said the infant nearly died from blood loss and is now permanently disfigured. The baby's father, David Skolchenbaum, 32, was sentenced on Wednesday to 16 years in prison after a jury convicted him last month of 3 felonies related to the neglect and endangerment of his children. Fox 59 reported. This case is horrific, and we will live with the images of this baby forever, prosecutor Diana Moores said in a news release. The baby lived in an absolute house of horrors along with his siblings and pet dog. Police arrested Skolchenbaum and his wife, Angel Renee Skolchenbaum, 29, and her sister, Deliana Thurman, after the father called 911 to report that his infant son was covered in blood and severely injured by rats inside their residence. Also, it reads, the tragic tot was flown to an Indianapolis hospital where he was treated and given a blood transfusion after his body temperature dropped to 93.5 degrees, according to police reports. Authorities said that the infant suffered the most traumatic injuries to his right hand, with each finger and thumb missing flesh, exposing bone on all 5 fingertips. The family's home on South Linwood Avenue, where the boy 3 and 6-year-old sibling and 2 and 5-year-old cousins also lived, was in deplorable condition, infested with rats and full of clutter, trash, bugs, and rat feces, prosecutors said. But the rats mauling of the baby was not the first time the vermin targeted children at the residence. 3 kids in the home had previously been bitten by rats while they were sleeping, prosecutors said, adding that the Indiana Department of Child Services provided aid to the house to address safety concerns prior to the baby's horrific mauling. Prosecutors said the baby's father failed to address issues that would have provided the children with a safe environment to live in. It is completely shocking to the conscience that anyone would live in these conditions, much less allow their children, baby, and animals to live among absolute filth when they cannot sleep themselves. Moore said, it is unimaginable how a rat was able to do such damage to this infant before his father called for help. The child's mother pleaded guilty last week to felony neglect charges and will be sentenced on October 24th, Fox 59 reported. Thurman was sentenced to 2 years of probation in April 2024. When it comes to child neglect, men or the fathers of these children are rarely charged. There's been some instances in New York City where I saw in the past, there was one instance where a man harassed a judge for custody, and then he got custody because that's the claim. Men don't get custody because they don't file. When they do file for custody, however, they do get it a lot of the time. So this man in particular, this father in particular, I think this was in the Bronx, he harassed the judge for custody. The judge gave him what he wanted, and then he left his infant son in the care of a Doberman Pinscher. I think the Doberman Pinscher killed that baby. And then the father was arrested because he left the baby with his 2 younger siblings and this dog. And the dog dog was a concern for the mother, but these concerns, of course, were ignored by Child Protective Services because they believed that, well, you just want to keep the child away from the father, and this is what you're doing. And lo and behold, the child is no longer here. So when they tell you to have babies, and this is what they tell women all the time, have babies, they said, get married, they said, start a family, they said, the sacrifice that women participate in when they do decide to procreate is not worth the world's treatment of that woman. So this situation, I believe that the reason why they came down so hard on the father is because he was the one home and in charge of watching those children. The mother, I believed, worked, which we always see. These married women, they work. Their husbands stay home a lot of the times and they do nothing. He didn't take any responsibility when it came to his household. And this is an issue that you see with men when we discuss things like weaponized incompetence. I can use this story for no marriage, and I can also use it for no babies, because in regards to this baby, everyone failed this child. You already have the story saying that other children were bitten by rats in the home, but yet these children were allowed to live there. They were allowed to still sleep there without anyone intervening and removing the child from that situation. So when you do decide to have children in patriarchy, you cannot protect your children. You cannot protect your children from their fathers. You cannot protect your children from Child Protective Services. You cannot protect your children from the establishment. And this is what we see in this case with this poor child. This man, and if you go to YouTube right now, because it's circulating all over, waited until his child's fingers were gnawed to the bone before he decided to call police. What was he doing in the home that he didn't hear a 6-month-old infant screaming, I'm sure, because they were being mauled by rats? Remember, they didn't say mice, they said rats. When I think of rats, I think of the rats here in New York City. The New York City rats there, they're as big as small children and they're huge. So when someone says a rat to me, that's what I'm thinking. What was he doing as a parent that he didn't see what was happening to this baby? So when I scream 4B and I say no babies, this is the reason why. You will get into a situation with a man who doesn't give a shit that you have a baby for him. This is why these men deserve nothing. And there's a girl on YouTube, she wrote a book, and I think the book is called 30 Reasons as to Why Men Deserve Nothing. You can look her up, but her book is incredible. Everyone should get that book because it's amazing. It's better for women to not give men anything than to continue to give men things and they don't even give a shit that you gave it to them. These are children. Children are supposed to be precious, but for some reason, with the amount of births that we see, having children today is cheap. Men don't even look at birth as something miraculous anymore. It's kind of like Joe Schmo, whole hum, pass the butter, you had a baby, big deal. This is why I believe that women should not have children, because when you have children, everyone shits in your face after you do so. It's when you become a mother that the whole world points their finger at you and asks you why you did it. And in the same breath, when you do decide to not have children with abusive men, because in my head, this man had to be abusive. If you are in a relationship with a man and this is how he's living with rats crawling all over the place and the place looking in this, there's no way that people who live like that are mentally sound. So we can't say people who live in hoarding situations are mentally well. A lot of the times they're not. If you're living in a situation where it looks like this, like the photos that you see online of this home, you know that something is off with that man. But Moen still, he was able to find a wife. He was able, to get a woman to give him children with the way he existed in this household. So I don't believe that men deserve children. I don't believe that women should continue to have babies. I don't think that the sacrifice is worth how women are treated after they have children. I said that already. I don't believe that it's fair to children to continue to bring them here when we cannot protect children from the patriarchy. Little girls, we can't protect children from the boys. We can't protect little boys. We spoke about this in the community section of my, YouTube space. Little boys are starting to watch porn at 7 years old. We can no longer protect children from men, from male, from the establishment, from patriarchy. So it's better to not have them than continue to have them. And this is the end result. A child who is now permanently disfigured, permanently hurt, and will suffer trauma because of simple neglect. Neglect. And I mean, when you think about it, to me, this has to be deliberate because children cry at the drop of a dime. So if a child is getting bitten by a rat, you have to hear those screams. You have to hear those cries if you live in that home. This is neglect. This was done deliberately, and I'm not sure why this was done. Maybe the father didn't want the child. Maybe this was a way for him getting back at the mom, because a lot of men do this. A lot of men use children to get back at their partners, even when they're married to them. So when you believe that getting married is a saving grace for you and your child with a man, it's not. Sometimes you get in a relationship with a man and you marry him, and it's 10 times worse because now you're fucking stuck with him. So I believe that this instance was deliberate. I believe that he allowed this to happen because of whatever reason, weaponized incompetence. Maybe he's depressed. Maybe his wife is working and doing things in her life and he's not doing the same. Husbands are jealous of their wives. I said that in another video. A lot of the times when women suffer harm at the hands of men, it's because she's doing something different with her life that she wasn't doing prior to them meeting. When women level up, when women glow up in relationships, men, they glitch out. They feel a way about it. They get insecure. They lose their shit. And I think in this instance, we can sit around and talk all day about what may have happened, but we know that the facts are this. There's a crying child in a home being eaten by rats, and there's a man in the home not doing anything. And he waits until the child suffers extreme blood loss to call authorities. I believe that his sentencing was appropriate. He could have gotten more years if I were the judge, but I'm not. I think that the wife should also be charged because she allowed her child to live in this situation. And I have to go back and forth on that because I can't say that this was her fault, but I can say that she had to know about it. She had to know that the rat infestation was a problem and she did nothing to save her child. And I don't know, she was waiting for her husband to get up and be a man, as so many women claim that they want men to do, which is bullshit because men have never been men. They've just been in charge because of their violence. But I think that's the issue as to why she's also getting prosecuted and sentenced. But let me know what you think. Get into the comment section. Yeah, I really feel bad for this baby. It's horrible what happened to him. This is really sad. But let me know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. Yeah.